In other news, the Police Minister Bheki Cele says communities need to take ownership for their role in corrupt police officers in crime-ridden areas. He's renewed calls to communities not to harbour criminals during a crime imbizo in Finetown, south of Joburg. He spoke to community members and community policing forums about crime interventions in that area. Our reporter Mohlaoli was there. He joins us now. Tumaole, good afternoon to you. What was the message from the Police Minister?
Well, the message was very clear that communities need to take ownership and start calling out those who engage in bribing and trying to corrupt police officers. He was in high spirits, saying that in terms of the community outcry about the crime situation and the prevalence of gangsterism and other form of crime, including drug trade and drug mules and drug activity specifically. This is something that the community was crying about, saying that he has done his bit, dipping into a budget he does not already have and giving the sector policing more vehicles and more manpower. There were several cadets that have just graduated that are now going to be put into the front line. So what Cele was saying is that communities are first and loudest to complain about crime, but at the same time, they're the ones who are quickest to offer a cool drink when there's a problem, and this creates a issue, and that not all police officers are prone to taking such things like bribes. However, that the few that engage in such activities should be called out, and that there are various systems within the policing that will deal with such activities.
It's very easy to say to community members, don't look after corrupt police officers, but police officers are brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers, you know. I mean, they're members of the community that they come from. It's not much harder to actually implement.
Much harder to implement, as you said, Stephen. They are, a part of the community fabric with which, under which they operate. But what makes it interesting is that he has put now the responsibility squarely on to those relatives, the brothers and the sisters, to say, don't turn a blind eye if someone is engaging in an activity to try and corrupt police officials. Blow the whistle. He says that the policing, community policing forums are just a good place where people feel that they should be safe in terms of calling out those that are engaging in illicit activity, including, trying to bribe police officers. But he says that also the police itself has got its own internal systems and its own forum to deal with such activities, so that if someone is alleged to be involved in some activity, they can then be investigated internally. Now, some of those within that particular environment did ask the question, how can the police be a player and referee in the same game? Won't there be any protection of those that are linked to some who are high up within the ranks? And he said, no, this is not the case, that the police watchdog is also there to ensure that there's fairness and transparency, and that every investigation will be seen to finish and will be seen to fairly and followed the letter of the law right to the end.
I don't know if people will see the evidence of that on the ground. There was a report in some of the newspapers yesterday that Bheki Cele himself is now being reinvestigated by the Investigative Directorate. It all relates to a deal when he was the National Police Commissioner about 10 years ago now, and involving a rental deal that he was accused of wrongdoing. In the end, he was actually removed from that position, where he resigned because of President Jacob, and it was all announced by President Jacob Zuma at the time. What's he said about that?
Well, he refused to comment on that, saying that, of course, the Investigative Directorate is an independent body, doesn't want to be seen to be, leaning too much in terms of the investigation. So he wouldn't necessarily know and wouldn't be kept abreast as to what's happening with the investigations, because being an independent body, the Investigative Directorate has then got the mandate to fully complete its investigations. And once those are finalized, he is willing and is very much open to, allowing the legal process to take its course, and he will abide by whatever recommendations and whatever findings come out of that investigation.
Mohlaoli, thank you very much indeed. If I remember correctly, there's actually a long-running judgment that goes all the way back several years on that, which did seem to clear him for the moment. Of course, that will be contested.